Gentleman Fairfax, Mr. Surovell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This floor amendment should have been distributed to everybody, but what it relates to is the recent settlement by the Attorney Generals of various states in a $69 million award that Virginia received and how that money is to be spent. From my point of view, this amendment is part of the wrong priorities and some of the bad choices that are made in the budgets that we're going to be voting on today. Today, the stats I've been able to look up over the last 3 hours say there's about 3,000 foreclosures currently pending in Virginia. That's about 1 in every 624 housing units. It's about 300 per delegate. A lot of this activity, the peak of it, of course, has been in Loudoun County, Stafford County, Prince William County. There's been a lot in the Richmond suburbs and Hampton Roads, places where there was a housing explosion over the last 10 years. It happened, in large part, because of the banks. Banks used fraudulent documents. They hired people off the street who didn't know anything about the documents they were attesting to. They had them sign papers fraudulently, lying about the things that were allegedly in them. Led to these practices called, you may have heard of this stuff, it was called robo-signing. A lot of these practices ended up in people being wrongfully evicted from their homes, wrongfully having their mortgages held in default, and it caused a lot of pain for a lot of people. And it not only caused pain for them, but it caused pain for their neighbors. You have, in lots of places, neighborhoods where houses have become blighted, where people aren't living there, where the banks own homes, where it's driven property values down. These problems affected everybody. Not only affected the neighbors, they affected people in the entire country. They drove home prices down. That was a big part of why we have this financial crisis in this country over the last 3 years, was because of the practices of these banks that the Attorney Generals took to task in this lawsuit. Now, the collateral consequence of this, the housing problems we saw, is something that Governor McDonnell even recognized. One of the first things he did when he was elected was he created a housing task force. It was Executive Order number 10, which I have a copy of right here, where he adopted a new housing policy, or he started a new housing policy for the Commonwealth. As part of that housing policy, he talked about how we need to focus on robust finance. We need to work on promoting workforce housing. We need to work on affordable housing. We need to work on housing for special needs populations, for people that are having housing problems, a lot of it because of this crisis. Now, he also created a foreclosure task force. And that task force has come up with a lot of recommendations. And I just want to talk about some of the stats they found. September 2011, Virginia Housing Development Authority did a review of foreclosure trends in Virginia. They found that at the end of 2011, this is just a few months ago, there were 70,000 early-stage delinquencies in Virginia, 45,000 30-day delinquencies, 20,000 60-day delinquencies. That's 135 families, 135,000 families. That's a lot. It's a lot in every one of our seats, in our districts. They went on to note that the pace of resolving these isn't speeding up. Hampton Roads is starting to, and Richmond is starting to catch up to Northern Virginia in the total volume of these things. They just issued another report just a couple months ago in which they found that the activity remains highest in Northern Virginia, Richmond, Greater Richmond, Hampton Roads, Chesapeake Bay regions. And these numbers are large. We're talking about thousands of families, over hundreds of thousands, over 100,000 families in this state, thousands per district. The inventory of lender-owned homes in this country is now 15, in this state, there's now 15,000 lender-owned homes in the Commonwealth of Virginia because of this crisis. And people are having problems buying them. Now, what the Virginia Housing Development Authority does is helps to provide affordable housing choices to people. It helps to provide affordable rent to people. It helps to put people in homes who've been affected by this exact problem that this money was given to the state for. The National Mortgage Settlement provides us with a unique opportunity to address these needs, to use this money for the purpose for which it was intended. We already have the Virginia Housing Partnership Revolving Loan Fund. We have programs that are available to developers to help them finance projects for affordable housing. We have programs in the Virginia Housing Development Authority to help with rental vouchers. They have programs to help with down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. They provide housing counseling for new homeowners. They help rehabilitate vacant and abandoned properties. They develop affordable renting programs. They prevent homelessness through supportive housing and rapid rehousing. This budget amendment would direct the $69 million to the purpose for which it was intended. Now, when I was a kid, I used to play this game called Monopoly. Back when I used to dream about being rich enough to, I don't know, become a Republican, I guess. But we'll talk about that after we're done here. But this brought me back to the game Monopoly, the game of community. I don't know if you remember, but you used to be able to pull this card called Community Chest. And a Community Chest, one of the cards you get was Bank Error in Your Favor, collect $200. I changed it to collect $67 million, and I put the Attorney General on here because the money went to our Attorney General, Ken Cuccinelli, for him to help distribute. But the purpose of this money, but this money is money we weren't expecting, and I appreciate that. But this isn't like Monopoly. You don't take the $200 and just put it in a kitty and get to play with it however you like. This money was given to us for a reason, not like the game of Monopoly. And we should use the money for the reasons for which it was given to our state. We shouldn't just throw it in a kitty and spend it to balance the budget like it's federal stimulus money. You know, we've been budgeting like that for the last 2 years. And my thought is that one of the things we were trying to do in this budget was to stop using gimmicks, stop using one-time hits of money, you know, to try and create a balance that was structurally balanced, a budget that was structurally balanced, not one that's balanced with one-time hits of money that we're going to have to deal with 2 years from now. So, Mr. Speaker, having said that, that's the purpose of the amendment. This amendment would would take this money for the purpose for which it's intended. It would help struggling Virginians get back on their feet, buy homes, get into housing. It would help rebuild our neighborhoods. It would help families for which it was intended, and not just help 8 million people in Virginia in general by going into the budget to be used for whatever reason we want. I would urge the body to support the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.